It seems like no matter what, Ubisoft just can't catch a break. Whether it's the inaccuracies surrounding Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Shadows release, with unseasoned crops being apparent within the game trailer and overall distraction of the architecture not being accurate to that time period, or the gross negligence of trying to make Yasuke an actual samurai in this Japanese-oriented game. And I think that is a thing that we're seeing consistently with Ubisoft, with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and more than anything, people are now complaining about new things that are popping up in the trailer that was just recently released about this game. They're more focused on some tropes that are becoming apparent with any westernized game focused on an Asian type of environment, where we're more liable to see a westernized ugly female trope be the predominant model for a character in any game that is focused on Japanese or Asian culture in general. And I think that's what people are seeing with some character designs that popped up that were showing a little bit of that tropey design that we see consistent all throughout the gaming industry. A new character that just been released, Yaya, who has that stereotypical SBI, Sweet Baby Inc. body positivity design that we see consistently throughout the video gaming industry when you're trying to introduce this social progressive principles into the gaming culture. And I think that's the thing people are noticing with a lot of the character designs with this Assassin's Creed Shadows, where it's still carrying water for these social progressive ideological points and trying to push forward and normalize these concepts. And of course, I think in the past we did have characters like this in different games, but now gamers are hyper aware when we see these things currently in the modern day gaming atmosphere, because now we know it coincides with a whole ideology that is averse to having any sort of pretty women. And I think specifically with Asian cultures or cultures that are just not oriented to Western society, we particularly see a downgrade in looks, when in actuality, a lot of the Eastern games do the opposite of that. They introduce an idealized look that is much more in line with the gamers that are working towards buying these games and playing these games. And I think that is a elemental thing that we see consistently throughout the gaming industry, where we see a downgrade in westernized gaming looks, and we see an upgrade with the looks that are made and developed by Eastern game developers. And I think that inconsistency is a thing that gamers are noticing drastically in every gaming release, because we see these games from Eastern game developers and they don't hold back with the designs that they're making. And I think that is a consistent thing that gamers are noticing within the industry nowadays, that Western game developers are choosing to ignore, because they have their own personal ideology at the forefront of everything that they're producing right now. And I think that is the thing that's leading to the trouble that we're seeing right now with Ubisoft, where Ubisoft has to shut down studios in multiple parts of the world, different countries. They just shut down their UK studio, firing over 185 people that worked on Star Wars Outlaws, which was a big flop in the gaming industry. It sold barely 1.5 million copies and was supposed to sell 6 million just to break even. I think that's the thing we're seeing right now with games massively failing from Ubisoft, that they're just more oriented to these designs that are the antithesis of what gamers actually are willing to purchase and sit through. And I think that is the thing that we see a comparison difference between Eastern and Western game developers, where Western game developers are just not making the designs that are pleasing to the gamer base or fan base. And we see that differences more than anything with the recent releases that have come out for Western game developers. And you can compare it with some Eastern game developers. You see that glaring, obvious difference where there's an approach to de-beautify, de-feminize all characters from the Western games development environment. And I think if that wasn't a process that was so held rigid within the Western games industry, people wouldn't notice. But if every single character has a gigantic chin, every single character is masculinized, every single character is talking about a pronoun, gamers are going to notice this now, where they see this trend where you're trying to strip away any sense of beauty from a lot of the characters. You can compare that with a lot of the Eastern games that are being developed and designed today. That is just not the process. Even when the focus is not their beauty, they still try to make those characters look as realistic and as appealing to the game players, because you're making something that gamers are looking at for 10 to 20 to 30 hours on end. If you have to look at a bald, annoying main character that seems antagonistic to the game players outright, then gamers are not going to play that game for more than 30 minutes. And I think that's what we see with Dragon Age Veilguard and Star Wars Outlaws failing. They made characters that just weren't appealing to the gamer base to actually prolong their time playing those games. And you see the opposite with a lot of the Eastern games. The Eastern games are sticking true to the things that are making gaming actually successful, and that's why they're succeeding, where Ubisoft is utterly failing right now. They're failing so much that they have to ask Steam to hide their gameplay numbers. You can see this with Star Wars Outlaws peaking out at 2,000 once it released and was outside of their own personal Ubisoft streaming platform, where they had to see the numbers be revealed of the people actually interested in playing this game, and it's barely 2,000 people. And you can compare it to some old games that are still on the platform that are kind of toppling it and its numbers. And I think this is the thing that we have to face with the gaming industry that is out now today, where they're just too focused on the wrong thing. They have this philosophy that they want to put at the forefront, but it's not bringing in the fan base or gamer base. And I think this is a character, maybe it might be a good character. You can still make a character like this, Yaya, with personality, that has the overall intention of being someone that you would be willing to play. It doesn't matter about the time period. I know people are complaining that she's supposed to be a sumo wrestler. There's no female sumo wrestlers. I think that's an easy thing Ubisoft could have skirted around if they just didn't dedicate this game to be historically accurate. And that's where we see the fumbling of this marketing strategy from Ubisoft, where they're trying to make a historical point when this is just a video game. You don't have to make historical points. You could just say this is a fabrication and we're having fun, and people would enjoy playing as Yasuke because Yasuke will be a fun character to play during that period. If you didn't try to enforce your political ideology where you're trying to fabricate a history of black slavery in Japan. And I think that's the Japanese people's point, where they dislike this game, where they're trying to fabricate Japanese history to be in line with their personal political progressive ideology about slavery across the whole world. And I'm thinking this is a sad point of view from game developers that has ruined a game that could be actually fun. And I think that is the sad part about the Assassin's Creed story right now, because Assassin's Creed could have been an okay game. People would enjoy it. Even if you did have Yasuke, just don't say it's actually a historical thing. Saying you're just making a fun game, still people would doubt you, because we know the political foundations of this game was based on making George Floyd a samurai, which is kind of a stupid idea. But 2020 was a stupid year where people made a bunch of stupid ideas come to reality. And I think this is one of the remnants of 2020, of those years where people were making dumb decisions in gaming. And this is kind of the fault of their own, where they're producing something that is going to fall flat on its face because it's not appealing to the gamer base. And unfortunately for them, Ubisoft is in for another massive drop in players, because gamers are not going to flock to this game. When they just look at some of these character models and designs, they even have hair facial qualities that are similar to Chinese people during that period rather than Japanese people. And you see complaints about that. You see complaints of the characters' looks and shape and skull structure, where people are saying these are not Japanese designs. You can see this with some Twitter comments where people are saying, where do you find these type of historical Japanese looking designs? Because Japanese people don't have this head structure. And you kind of see that play out within this game as it tries to say it's historical while it's messing all these historical details. And I think, unfortunately for them, combine that with the ugly character design, you get a game that is just not going to make any money. And fortunately for the East, they're making games that game players are going to play regardless of the story, because fun and entertainment is at the forefront. They're not trying to make historical precedents. They're not trying to make proclamations of history or moral values that they want to expound upon and want to impose on the gamer base. They're making fun games. They're not saying this is history. They're not saying this is the future of the world. They're not saying this is what they want the gamers to believe in. They're making games for gamers that want to have fun and want to look at something that is interesting to look at. And I think that's simply the case with gamers. If you want to win over gamers, make something fun, make something entertaining, make the gameplay good, then have something look good. Add on top of that, you're gonna have gamers' attention for a long time. And I think that is just simple marketability that has been lost in the Western game environment, at least for the past few years. But that's just my 2 cents on the situation. Maybe you don't believe in me. Maybe you think the gamer base are up and ready to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. They don't care about some of the poor quality designs, and they're just willing to give it a chance. I highly doubt it, but you leave a comment, tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.